Welcome back, OCM. Thanks for joining us for another time of Devos. So I want to share with you a bit of advice that I was given that really impacted me and has brought me to where I am today. After college, I had graduated with no desire in pursuing a career in what I studied. So it was a lot of wandering and exploring, and it was 5 years of that. So there were many times of uncertainty. It was lots of learning that God is my provider. And it was on one missions trip where I was sharing this with the missionary. And she really empathized with me. She had been in my shoes before, and she had shared how when she made a switch in her career path, she was really at a crossroads. And for her, when she spoke with her pastor, she was encouraged not to sit at home and wallow in self-pity, not to just lay around and just wait for something to come by, but she was encouraged to continue to serve God. And whether that's in her community or in her church, she was encouraged to use the gifts and the passions that she had so that she would continue to serve. And she challenged me to not waste my waiting. So after that missions trip, I had come home, and in returning to New York, I was asking different people how I can serve where I am right now. And that eventually led me to being here with the youth. And I want to encourage you not to waste your waiting. We are all very familiar with what waiting feels like, whether it's waiting for the end of the day so that you can go home and relax, whether it's waiting for the next meal or your next vacation. We are very familiar with what that's like. And in this time, there's also this waiting of being able to leave our homes freely, go back to normal life, waiting for this pandemic to be over. And I want to encourage you that however long this period is, whether it's 15 days or 8 weeks where we are at home, not to waste the waiting. So today our passage that we'll be looking at is John 17, verses 1 to 5. So if you can follow along.
Hey, I'm Hannah from Cana Fellowship, and I'll be reading John 17, verses 1 to 5 from the NIV version. Jesus prays to be glorified. After Jesus said this, he looked towards heaven and prayed, Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that your Son may glorify you. For you granted him authority over all people, that he might give eternal life to all those you have given him. Now this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. I have brought you glory on earth by finishing the work you gave me to do. And now, Father, glorify me in your presence with the glory I had with you before the world began.
So in thinking about waiting, I pondered upon who in the Bible would be the best example of what it means to serve and continue to live as a living sacrifice in the waiting. And obviously, we read a passage about Jesus, and he understood why he came to earth. He understood in verse 4 the work that God had for him, where he would come live on this earth, and eventually he would be crucified on the cross. And in this pandemic, it's easy to let that be at the forefront of our minds, but we're also in the season of Lent. We're also quickly approaching Easter, and I think it's so opportune to be able to look at the life of Jesus, because even though he knew what he was waiting for, that did not come until he was about in his 30s. He did not just stay at home, hang out with friends, hang out with Mary and Joseph, but with his life, he used each day to serve, whether it was teaching and preaching, whether it was reaching out to the outcast, whether it was healing and delivering people. And in our time, while we may feel like we are very limited as we are within the walls of our home, as we are not able to go out as freely. So in this time of being at home and waiting for this pandemic to be over, I want to challenge you to serve and to live as a living sacrifice just as Jesus did. So even in his final days, even in his final moments at the cross, Jesus continued to forgive and to intercede for others. And as hard as it is, we need to do the same. Where just as Jesus, until his final breath, pointed others to God, our goal, our mission on this earth is to point others to God ourselves. And that may come at a cost where we are mocked and humiliated just as Jesus was. But that's what it means to be a living sacrifice. However long this waiting period is, I want to encourage you to connect and reach out to those around you. If it's those in need, whether it's the elderly, whether it's a family down the hall that needs just extra hands, would you be those extra hands for them? If it's reaching out to the outcast, those who may feel isolated, instead of spending time with your close circle of friends, why don't you check up on those who you might not consider at first? Would you share that love that Jesus has shared with us? Would you be that living sacrifice that he lived so that we would ultimately point others to God, even within the walls of our home? So we look forward to seeing you again soon. It's really strange being in 154 where the pews are empty and the hallways are empty, so we're excited to be back together. So until then, stay safe, stay connected, and continue to serve as Jesus did. Bye, OCM.